Three, two, one.
Welcome to episode number 29 of The Gray Stage. My name is Dan Hennon, joined here with Greg Fernandez Jr., the author of the book, The Gray Stage. Now, this is a book about the Crowley family, triple homicide that took place in Apple Valley back in 2015. He wrote a book about it, the only book that I am aware of that's even out there on this case, and it's very well done. We are doing audio episodes and video here talking about the book, going through chapter by chapter. Today we're going to be covering on chapter 14, chapter called Rotten Reviews. And for those following along in your book at home, it's on page 123. 123 of The Gray Stage. How are you doing today, Greg?
I'm doing pretty good, Dan. I figured I would pull up my book here and I'd follow along with you. We're very old school here today. I love it.
Yeah, this is good. So basically, for the listeners out there, the book is really, for the most part, done. We're down to the closing section, and now once that documentary came out, there were a lot of reviews done on Rotten Tomatoes and whatnot about it. And what we do here is this chapter, you've got that we're really reviewing the commentary that the folks are making, and is it legit or not? Is it propaganda? Is it and we'll do some research on some of the comments that are written. This is nationwide now, nationwide comments that are put on Rotten Tomatoes about the film that we were in. And but what we'll notice here, a lot of the same verbiage creeps up, a lot of the same terminology creeps up. And so once again, the sloppymentary, as you call it, the Eric Nelson film called The Gray State, is a propaganda piece. We've all come to the conclusion, not just opinion, that it's, for the most part, it seems to be that it was a funded propaganda piece to make it really look like us are the bad guys. David Crowley was a bad guy. He killed his family, and it's an open and shut case. But they really go after those of us reviewing things like this, and put us down is what they're doing. So here's where it starts, page 123, chapter 14 of the book. And I'll go ahead and start here, Greg, and we'll go from there.
Sounds good.
Sounds good. It says, on July 11th, 2017, Dan Hennon and I recorded a special broadcast giving our opinions on the first reviews of Eric Nelson's documentary, A Gray State. Here are my notes associated with those rotten reviews. First one, Frank Scheck. So we're going through the folks here that are leaving comments on nationwide Rotten Tomatoes website that still, I think, to this day has like a 10 rating, doesn't it?
Oh, really? Wow.
It's way up there. It's one of the best movies out there for documentaries in 2017. But here's an individual by the name of Frank Scheck. Here's the notes that you had for this. In Mr. Scheck's review, the keyword alt-right is mentioned 3 times, and Alex Jones is mentioned twice. Though Alex Jones appears briefly in the documentary, the first paragraph of the movie review focuses on Alex Jones. Quote, right-wing media provocateur Alex Jones recently admitted in court that he's merely, quote, playing a character, thereby lending an ironic subtext to Eric Nelson's documentary about the deaths of aspiring filmmaker David Crowley and his family, end quote. So we get all this alt-right stuff. Now, I don't consider myself alt-right. You don't consider yourself alt-right. And they lump us in here with Alex Jones, which is okay, I guess, but he's only in very briefly. But this individual, Frank Scheck, already mentions Alex Jones a bunch of times. And so trying to go down this conspiracy rabbit hole that we are conspiracy nut job alternate folks that are bat crazy. It's just that's what they're trying to lump us into. And they haven't even gotten into reviewing the movie yet.
Right. It's all about Alex Jones here. And when he talks about Alex Jones said that he was, quote unquote, playing a character, that is directly related to the court case that Alex Jones, one of the lawsuits that he was being sued for, tied to Sandy Hook. And so, of course, they're setting the stage. Frank Scheck is setting the stage here to let, if anyone had any doubts that Eric or that David was crazy or anything, they're just going to just tried to trick people into not even focusing. Don't focus on David. This is all about Alex Jones. Alex Jones is playing a character in this actual lawsuit, and so obviously, if he's friends with Alex Jones, if he's tied with Alex Jones, then there's something wrong here. Interesting to note what David last said about Alex Jones at the end of his life, but I'm sure we'll get there in a future show here.
So the second paragraph goes on to say, Scheck claims, quote, several self-identified citizen investigators, end quote, attempted to prove that the family was murdered. Quote, credibility means nothing to me, unquote, one of them ironically comments. Scheck is talking about me. Now, this is you here writing, as he's going after you, saying when you made the quote that credibility is nothing to me, which is a very good quote, I believe, as far as I'm not out to impress certain people or not. I'm just here to tell the truth. I don't care if you like me or not, as far as that. Scheck is talking about me, and he is wrong. I'm not trying to prove that the family was murdered. I'm not sure what Scheck is trying to prove with that comment, but it makes me wonder how much time he actually spent researching the case. So, Greg, you're one of those from the very beginning, and I commend you on this, that even way late after we started, essentially solving the crime, is that you said, I'm still open to whatever it is. Wherever the facts lead us, that's where we will go. We're not here to be on one side. We're not here to be on another side. We're not here to persuade. We're not here to convince listeners on shows like this or readers in your book of what to believe. You're supposed to we're here to say, let you draw your own conclusions to what you think happened. But never did you ever say that David didn't do it or David did it. You just said, I just think there's too many inconsistencies here. It needs to be looked into, which I think is a very good statement to make. Finishing up, he says, Scheck's rotten review leaves the casual reader with the false impression that there are only two choices. Either David killed his family or the government is responsible for their deaths. Scheck's review, just like all the others, completely ignores any other possibilities. Do you wonder why? Overall, you say, in bold type, I find this review grossly irresponsible. So I agree 100%. It does leave the casual reader that it's some sort of conspiracy that the government did it, or the only other option is that David did it. And so we're here presenting these other options and keeping the door open to anything that could have happened. But they're saying it's black and white. It's once again, it's this option A or option B. It reminds me a lot of the Hegelian dialect, where they're trying to shove you into two categories without being open to say, it's kind of like a right-left Democrat Republican paradigm. Those things are set up that way on purpose to lead people into two camps. It doesn't give the option to say, hey, there's 3 or 4 possibilities or 5. It just says it's either this or that. Now, we were certainly open to the fact that it could have been a government conspiracy, but we kind of ruled that out right away. We also have proof and evidence that David certainly did not do this. So neither of those options are right. So I think you're right. Frank Scheck was fishing everyone down those two paths, and discrediting us along the way. Self-identified citizen investigators. I don't know what else that folks we could call ourselves. Self-identified citizen investigators. I don't know. We both don't do this for a living, so it's not a career. We're armchair investigators, I guess, but so are a lot of other people. But
yeah. No, he kind of makes the reader want to think that this is a bad thing, that we really have to identify ourselves as something. It doesn't matter what we would identify ourselves as. It would have still been the same thing. He would have still written this in that same way to try to discredit us, instead of just saying, hey, these guys think David Crowley didn't do it, and here's why David Crowley did it. That's what the article should have been. That's what it should have been.
That's what I would call a true comment on a review, on a movie review.
Right.
Wide open.
Yeah, that would have been great.
This is setting a narrative. This is pushing a narrative without
and
being a real review.
I never understood why he would say that the credibility means nothing to me. Is one of them I ironically states. I never, or comments, right? What is the irony? What is he trying to say there? That I guess because I don't have credibility, so it means nothing to me, or what I'm
Well,
saying is
I
not
think
credible, or
I think is that if you're trying to push a conspiracy theory, that you're going to try to be as credible as you can, so folks will believe you. A snake oil salesman, a salesman, as far as trying to sell someone something, which is very different than what you and I are doing here. We're leading people down the path and having them draw their own conclusion based on facts, based on evidence, based on real things. We're keeping our opinions and theories to ourselves, but you'll need credibility if you're trying to push, alien, UFO, Mars stories, Bigfoot, conspiracy. That's what the typical person thinks that is. And then they're not going to get too far if a book is written by someone with no credibility. Who's going to believe it? I think is what he's getting at, because he thinks that we're Alex Jones followers and friends, that we're pushing a conspiracy. I don't think that he doesn't even entertain the thought in his head that this could actually be true. Your book.
Yeah.
So the biggest thing, if you're trying to push conspiracies, is you have to be credible. You have to have a PhD, a doctorate after your name, certain initials and acronyms for all this degrees and things that you have to be able to be credible. We're just pushing things down the road. We're not trying to sell anything. We're not trying to sell. We're not trying to make anyone believe something.
Right. Yeah, I used to think people were credible because they had the facts, and that's what I would think. So when he says that, pretty much saying I'm not a credible person, what I'm saying is not a credible source. I was hoping he would at least give the reader some knowledge as to why. What did I say that was wrong? Where did I get my facts wrong? But again, he doesn't go there.
And you didn't. In fact, the best thing about your book right here, Greg, is every single thing you say is backed up with the quote or the statement or the passage or the evidence from the lab that they said. You're not putting words in anyone's mouth here. We're not leading people down the wrong path. But that's how I could tell that he wasn't an authentic commenter, reviewer of this, because he was pushing an agenda. He was pushing a narrative to make you and I both look bad, discredited. That's all he was focusing on. And I think the same thing for me. I'm not interested in worrying about who thinks that I'm credible or not. That's why we have the facts speak for themselves. That's yeah.
Sounds simple.
Now the next page is a review that's done by a gentleman by the name of Nick Shager. And so here it goes on, starting on page 124. It says, in Mr. Shager's review, the keyword alt-right is mentioned 5 times. Alex Jones is mentioned 4 times. And President Donald Trump is referenced 3 times. Very interesting. This is a comment. It's supposed to be reviewing a movie. None of these things. So what they're doing is combining everyone into the same bucket that it's wrong. So Shager's review begins and ends with Alex Jones, when it should be about David Crowley and the alleged double murder-suicide. Instead of focusing on the allegation against David Crowley, Shager focuses more on Alex Jones and Donald Trump. Well, I agree with you there, Greg. It's those 2 names shouldn't even be part of the review.
Yeah, Alex Jones.
They're very polarizing names, and that's why they're inserted, I think, into the review.
Yeah, and Donald Trump is not in the movie. He's not in any of David's work, as far as I know. David was more about Ron Paul. So I was like, well, they don't mention Ron Paul. I don't believe in any of this stuff, but they make sure to mention
more the Gray State guys were libertarian guys. Ron Paul kind of cats, Right. But Donald Trump is not in the movie. Donald Trump's not mentioned. So the fact that he's mentioned here 4 times, Trump's mentioned 3 times, and Alex Jones is mentioned 4 times. Alex Jones in a very, very small part of the movie. But once again, because they're polarizing names to the negative, they're going to insert those as much as they can to have people think that you and I are part of that same dump, that same camp, that same group. And I think with all the episodes we've done of these 28 episodes, I don't think you and I have ever mentioned Donald Trump in this case ever.
I don't think not
Very
in this case.
rarely. I don't even think we talk about Alex Jones a lot.
No, I don't think so either. Not in a positive way, at least. I mean, like I said many times, I kind of get when Alex Jones didn't cover the David Crowley case, that was pretty much it. That's when I stopped watching Alex Jones, stopped basically listening to him. I was pretty much done with him at that point.
Yeah, the fact that his response to this case back in 2015 wasn't there, and multiple attempts were to try to get him to do a show, a podcast, something exploring the scenarios here, and he says, no, basically I'm not going to do it. He did it himself. It's a done deal.
Yep.
And that we both kind of called it quits on him. So his name has not been coming up. We see these names mentioned all over the reviews. In the article, it says a friend of David Crowley calls the Gray State fan base legitimately insane, with quotes. Legitimately insane, the fan base.
I think I know who that fan is. I think it's Mitch Heil. I can't prove it, but I think that's Mitch Heil.
It's interesting. We're covering this case. I was never a fan of Gray State or David Crowley until I heard of this incident. And so right there, I'm not in that bucket of legitimately insane as part of the fan base. I didn't know the name David Crowley existed until the murder happened. Now, you, on the other hand, have been following the Gray State, and some other people following our page have been following it and could be considered fans or following the project. But I also wouldn't say that those people are insane. I don't. The folks that I have followed in this project are very bright individual, intelligent, critical thinkers that are following this project and the David Crowley murder. They're very, very, for the most part, awake people. But like I said, I'm not part of the fan base, I guess, but I am now.
Yeah, you are now. I mean, I'm not either, but whoever maybe they're a doctor, maybe they're a psychiatrist, and they're able to just call everybody, the fan base, not including us, obviously, since we're not really in the fan base, the whole fan base. He just pretty much diagnosed the whole fan base.
Well, now they're throwing the whole fan base under the table, under the bus.
Under the bus, pretty much.
And the murder has nothing to do with the fan base. It's a family of 3 were murdered in their home. So
yeah, and this friend may have been somebody who worked on the Gray State project. So
well, and then once again, it's planting a seed. It's pushing people down a narrative, is what we're seeing with these reviews. They're planting seeds along the way. I wonder if that friend worked on the Gray State project with David. You go on to say, here we have another film review that doesn't mention the numerous holes in the police investigation and alleged conclusion. Forget about looking for facts to prove David's guilt. Instead, this review focuses on rumors and innuendo to subconsciously convince the reader that David was a, quote, alt-right filmmaker who, along with his wife, went crazy and committed a double murder-suicide. The article teases Komel's complicity in the crimes and dabbles into the theory of a supernatural presence that had been following the Crowleys for over a year. Now, we've covered that in this book as well. Shager goes on to write that David and Komel embark on a, quote, on a joint path of wholesome isolation from everyone they knew and became convinced that they were being persecuted not only by the state, but also by other worldly forces. Between that sort of lunacy and David's filmmaking endeavor, which involves staging dog attacks on civilians and point-blank assassinations, it's no surprise that young Rania, in a candid video moment, is seen describing her and her parents' imaginary murders in gruesome terms, quote, this room is bloody, the red man is going to get you, quote. It's a stark illustration of how the mindset adopted by David and his alt-right brethren warps and corrupts. Now, I need to stop just there. That's
hard to read. That's hard to read. Yeah, you did good at that. It's hard to follow, I'm sure.
So they do. This article does say now that Komel is involved or complicit, a joint path. They were withdrawing from everyone, and they were being persecuted by the state and other worldly forces. Wow.
They really focus on that, on the pact and the paranormal aspect of this case and everything, and try to give you some quotes. But again, it's interesting how they can just pull things from Eric Nelson's film, but they don't have time to look at any of the documents where they may have questions about just some of the simple questions that you would say, well, what proves David guilty? That's what these articles should be focused on, but really they're not, because Eric Nelson's film isn't focused on that. So I guess they get a pass for that reason.
Well, they pluck, two scenes here from the Gray State trailer, the dog attacks, point blank assassinations. I think they were just included something that a viewer could have seen in the 2-minute trailer is all that was. And then they bring Rania into it, describing that the red man's going to get you as far as this Stark thing. Now, we've already covered that as well. That was a common thing from the production company Bad Robot in some television series, Lost, and some other things like that. It was a little red man, a little robot. And they've got this coming into now that she was corrupted, essentially. She was part of it. Her world was normalized by murders and death and gruesome things, which is also not true. And they mentioned alt-right again. It's a warped mindset, and it's corrupt. And the brethren. I mean, it's this Nick Schlager just goes all over the top. And I have yet to see anything here that's even accurate of his entire review so far. And he says, and ending with, and the fact that, as a news reporter points out, Rania's morbid fantasy functioning as Shining-esque prophecy only further underlines how dreams of death and destruction often end by coming true. Wow. Now we're getting into this, The Shining once again, the movie. And overall, you have in bold letters at the bottom, it says, overall, this article fails in an attempt to connect David Crowley to the alt-right and to Alex Jones. Still, it does a great job in making baseless allegations. This whole review by Nick Schlager is baseless allegations. It's cherry picking things along with names and events to tie in to how he's such a bad guy, David Crowley. That's all this is talking about. It's throwing David Crowley and his entire family under the bus, including his 5-year-old daughter. They're all nuts. They're all mental. They're all lunatics.
I think that's the biggest problem that I think a lot of people have with this one as well. They not only went after David, they went after David's wife and David's daughter too. They made them all look crazy, like they were all just kind of, just in this weird world, saying these weird things without proper context.
It's common nowadays, Greg, for someone to think, hey, I'm going to watch several movies. I'm going to go to Rotten Tomatoes, read the reviews, and pick which one I want to go with, and see how its ratings are, what kind of ratings. And they'll get to something like this, and they'll read a variation of reviews like this that are negative, demented, and discrediting. And so they'll already have that seed planted when they go watch the movie that this is what it's about. And so it essentially works, because these reviews were written right as the Rotten Tomatoes reviews came out. There was 5 of them the next day appeared. The ones that we're reading now, these didn't take a couple days to appear. These first 5, I believe, were out there the very next day. Almost like they were in the can in draft mode, and once it went live, let's press publish, and then these comments are already out there. There wasn't enough time for people to watch the movie to log in then to write a creative review like this. These reviews were already done, I believe, and then just published to the site when it was set. But they were out there very, very soon.
Yeah, because the film hadn't really come out yet, right? It had come out it had premiered maybe 1 or 2 places by the. I mean, this is we recorded this. We talked about this on July 11th, 2017. I don't know if it really came out till that summer. I know it didn't hit Netflix until the end of 2017.
Yeah, Christmas time, I believe, or November. It started coming, being shown, but
because it was at the Walker Theater in Minnesota, I think, right around this time, maybe. So maybe it was right around summer of 2017.
So these reviews were out there by the time we did this show, which was in July, right? July 11th.
Right. And we hadn't seen the movie yet. We hadn't
even seen it. Yes, correct. We had not even seen it. But these are the reviews that were out on the Rotten Tomatoes website before the public could even get a chance to see, before it was publicly shown in mass for the mass to see it. Very interesting. Now, the third one is Anthony Kaufman, In Mr. Kaufman's review, the keyword alt-right is mentioned 5 times, while Alex Jones and Donald Trump are both mentioned twice. Here is another article that begins with an alt-right wet dream. The writer calls the premise for David Crowley's Gray State movie, quote, far-fetched, and labels Alex Jones and Donald Trump's favorite fake news conspiracy theorists.
I love that quote.
So this is, once again, Trump's not in the movie. Alex Jones isn't, for the most part, in the film at all. And they're calling it a far-fetched, it's basically an alt-right wet dream to put these characters in there together. Wow.
It has everything. It has everything that you would
Not at
need
all.
to
It's
pretty
throwing
much
the
not
whole
watch
group-
it.
It's throwing the whole group under the bus.
I mean,
Yeah.
I would almost think that they don't want anybody to watch this film the way that they're writing these articles.
Yeah, it's very, very negative. It goes on to say the author claims that, quote, Crowley's fans and devotees were quick to call foul play, suggesting that the U.S. government assassinated one of their would-be leaders. But what about people like Dan Hennon and myself, Mr. Kaufman? What about those of us who were never fans or devotees of Crowley or his work? And see, that's a good point, because they're putting us all in one basket. They're dumping us all into one bucket as lunatics. You or I were not devotees of the work. I don't think we had ever considered David Crowley to be a would-be leader in the future, a possible leader of this country, or a leader in some way, shape, or form. He was a very good artistic guy and a film creator, film director, filmmaker. Very, very good. But yeah, once again, it brings up the fans and devotees. Now, it goes on to say, does Kaufman conveniently forget about us because we did not fit into the storyline that either David is guilty or the government killed him? Is it possible that there are more options unmentioned by the author? Also, who considered David one of their leaders? I haven't heard anyone state David was their leader. And so it's very interesting how they're putting these, what the normal general public, I think, thinks, or perceptions of these things, and labels us all the same. And if you go through one by one, like these articles here, we're breaking them down, the actual review itself, and almost every single line is wrong in the review.
Right.
It almost, like you said earlier, makes me wonder if these first 3 reviewers that we've read even watched the movie, is how off base this seems. Kaufman also explains his view about the truth of this situation. But the truth, as director Eric Nelson reveals in his carefully plotted out and sympathetic investigation, is more tragic and sad than shadowy. What I find sad and shadowy is Kaufman's lack of knowledge about this case. Very good point. It's almost like he didn't do any research, maybe never even watched the movie, and certainly hasn't studied the case. It is very sad and shadowy. Now, you and I have already said multiple times that we don't believe a shadowy element of the government is behind this murder anyway. It has nothing to do with a conspiracy of deep, dark secret ops guys carrying this thing out. The ultimate mystery of Crowley's case, Kaufman writes, then becomes not if he was murdered, but how did he and his loving wife embark on such an irrevocable downward spiral together? Wow. Once again, now he's throwing Comel under the bus, and they embarked on this, this downward spiral together, which I also don't think was true either. Kaufman ends the review by claiming Eric Nelson's documentary reveals the catastrophic ways in which both the government and the alt-right community failed a man and his family, and not in the way that Alex Jones might think. I think Kaufman failed his readers and should be ashamed of his foolish piece of writing. I agree 100% there. Mr. Kaufman's review was foolish. If anything, it's very wrong. Now, your summary here in bold type, Greg, says, overall, this review tries to attach David and Comel to a pact theory, to the alt-right label, to Alex Jones, and to Donald Trump. Try as you might, you have failed. None of these things are connected, and that was his whole goal of this article, is to lump these all together. Very interesting. Now the next one is Jason Bailey.
See, I've never heard of any of these guys, by the way. I don't know who they are. Have you heard of any of these people so
No,
far
but I think
here?
their shtick, so to say, would be that they are well revered, movie reviewers, Roger Ebert, type of guys that are quick to be the professionals. The movie review professionals are the ones usually they're your first commenters on movie reviews. They're the first ones who get it out there, and then it's if you read farther down on the Rotten review on Rotten Tomatoes, those commenters are just everyday people like us. But the first handful of any, if it's a new release CD, a new release film, a movie coming out, the professional reviewers are the first ones that have the first stab at watching it first to do a review on it. And that's who these individuals that I've never heard of are trying to be is what they're the professionals is what they're trying to push across, I think.
I don't know how credible they are, but again, this is coming from somebody who isn't credible himself. So take
Yes,
my
but
word with a grain of salt.
correct. And these are not meant to be just public Joe Schmoes, John Doe writing a review. They are, even the way they write and the way they write their review is very, I wouldn't say condescending, but you can tell that they're trying to push the narrative here. Now, Jason Bailey's the next one. In Bailey's 4-sentence review, the keyword alt-right is mentioned 0 times. Alex Jones is only mentioned once. Thank you, Mr. Bailey. Now, then again, we are back to the PAC theory, which seems to play a key role at the end of the documentary, A Gray State. Bailey calls the documentary, quote, sad story of a couple succumbing to despair and to the same kind of paranoia that infused his work, end quote. Powerful. But wait, there's more, you go on to say. Don't forget the darkness which can overtake us all. It's a hard movie to watch, as his private audio and video recordings serve as journals of a descent into madness.
Oh.
But this is a harrowing portrait. How easily our own darkness can take us over if we let it, end quote. Are you scared yet? Make sure you keep your lights on and don't let the bed bugs bite, is what you put on here. Now, here Bailey's pushing the fear factor, the fear. You got to be careful what you do in your life, in your professional and personal life, because it could grab a hold of you and take you to some harrowing depths. And there is, it looks like Sophia is on now.
Hey, Sophia, how are you?
Hi, how are you guys?
Good.
We're on page 127, Sophia. We're going over some of the reviews of the movie that were written on Rotten Tomatoes website. And we're having some fun here because they're very, very random. and it seems to us so far that those who have written the reviews have either not seen the movie itself or have seen it but not done any research regarding the case. They're not well versed as far as the case is concerned or the investigation, but they're quick to point fingers and add names like Donald Trump and Alex Jones and alt-right to all of the writings. These phrases are used all throughout.
So they got their gaslighting talking points.
Oh, that's about the best way, I think, to say this. They got the gaslighting talking points before they wrote the review. I mentioned earlier before you came on, Sophia, that I do believe that these reviews were all written already in the can and written and saved. And then once the Rotten Tomatoes website was available for this film, they were conveniently slapped up there the very next day. These, I think, were all done. This is all propaganda pieces, I believe. But Jason Bailey's using the PAC theory and Kamel because of what they both did together resulted in this horrible act by what they were doing and what they were getting involved in. And then the key word is they. Kamel and David.
So we have three or four of these guys who have mentioned this PAC theory, whether a little subtly or even a little bit more viciously, really, at some point here. And this is just more reason why Kamel's family, from what they've stated, they they wanted their footage taken out of this film. They didn't wanted no part of this film, and I can totally see why.
Yeah, because
I wouldn't either.
you're right, Greg. They were going to be in the film. They were interviewed. They had their pieces in the film, and then at the last minute, they told them to yank them out, get them out of there. The Alam family was not interested in being any part of this documentary at all. And this is it. All these, since that movie came out, it was easily can tell that they're trying to drive home the fact that Kamel was involved, complicit, or helped or aided in the downfall of David, and they both did all this together. Now, your final summary in bold-face print, Greg, says, overall, this review is a harrowing portrait of a writer who needs to do more research before succumbing to assumptions about a case he knows very little about. And I think that's very true. Jason Bailey, I think in this case, if you're listening here tonight, I don't think you know much about the investigation or the case. And it's hard to assume that you even watched the film before writing this review about this. He's all over the board, this guy.
That's a nice way to put it.
He's all over they're jumping all around the board here. And now on the bottom section of page 127, if you're following along in the book, is a reviewer by the name of Chris Barsanti. His says, in Mr. Barsanti's review, the keyword alt-right is mentioned 3 times, and Alex Jones is referenced twice, if you count the word InfoWars. The headline of Barsanti's review begins with, "When Fantasies Kill." Quotes. Nothing to fear here, right?
Gotta love those buzzwords.
Oh, and it's buzzwords. Yes. The headline continues to attack David Crowley, labeling this case as, quote, the murderous madness of an alt-right paranoiac in a gray state, end quote. There's the fear porn we've become accustomed to in these reviews. Thanks, Christopher.
I really think that it was this movie that set off the whole alt-right, because up until then, I had not heard of that word. And I don't see David as alt-right at all. I mean, if he was, would he be married to a Muslim woman from the Middle East? And I mean, I don't see it. And anyway, it's crazy.
I agree, and we'll ask Greg here next. But I don't remember hearing alt-right before this movie even came out at all, as far as a term. Eric Nelson and the documentary came up with the phrase alt-right, and that's the first I've heard. Now it's very common now, of course, but before the movie, Greg, were you familiar with this term?
Yeah, I think there were some protests that were happening, and they were basically alt-right protests. Remember, they were trying to tie Donald Trump to this alt-right thing. So the timing is very strange, because it was right around this time. There were riots, obviously, ever since Trump got in. There seemed to have been these riots that were happening, but so there were these alt-right wing people. So that term was very, very new as far as what I had heard. And so when I heard that they were trying to connect it to David, I'm like, wow, I don't even think that term was, when David was with us, I don't think that was a term. There was no alt-right back then. I could be wrong. There was right wing, I think, but I don't know if there was this alt-right thing back in 2014. I don't remember that.
Yeah,
definitely.
I think that was developed by the HRC campaign as kind of a, like deplorables and stuff like that.
Right. Okay. All right. I see. Yeah.
But we talked before you came on, Sophia, that David and his group, they were very proud. What's the group? Libertarians. They were really
libertarians. Yes.
Ron Paul followers, if you will. So they were very much in that camp. I don't think they were a Donald Trump group at all, but alt-right. They did utilize that phrase here in this because they really pushed it down our throats here in the reviews.
And it's just all part of the agenda. Just you got to get those buzzwords in there.
Well, speaking of Yeah, of those buzzwords. So that's how he starts this off. When fantasies kill. I mean, the whole theory that David Crowley did anything, that David Crowley murdered anyone, that is the fantasy. That is the biggest fantasy involved in this whole thing. There's absolutely no evidence, and Eric Nelson doesn't provide any to show that these are fantasies or anything. That, it's just very weird how they twist everything, how they always love to just turn it and twist it and act like we're kind of the bad ones who are even asking this, that David was the bad person without even proving it or adding any context or any facts that would show David's fantasies were killing, or any of the fantasies were killing. These buzzwords, like you say, really, really, I wouldn't say that they triggered me, but they really stood out to me, and I really focused on a lot of. That's why I started counting. How many times are they saying alt-right? How many times are they saying Alex Jones? How many times are they saying Donald Trump? And it was more than I thought. It was pretty interesting.
Could you imagine being the Crowley family or even the Alam family and reading these articles? And I mean, that just must have been more salt in their wounds. It's just got to be horrible.
Yeah, because they ended up pulling out all these instances of the movie of the Gray State. After all this stuff came out, and once they saw the final version of what the movie looked like, they were going right after Kamel's family and her.
Yeah. And that started as soon as they started playing the recordings in the movie. That's where the decline against Kamel was focused.
Yeah, and they, and what they did with all of this, there were gigabytes of data found as far as videos and audio. And what they did, Sophia, is cherry pick the ones that make Kamel and David or David look bad and use that all throughout the movie. They didn't use any video footage of David or Kamel being good or happy, intelligent, a loving couple and proud parents of the daughter. They kept all that out, and so they helped push that to suppress them as going down this downward spiral.
Well, the last two recordings that had come out on there talking about the voice, and then the rapture video is what a lot of people call it. They are highly edited, and once you put headphones in, you can hear all the stopping points, the edit points, everything. So they even took that out of context. One of those videos was over 7 minutes long, and we just got a little clip of it. And that one was edited to make them sound crazy.
And that's what gets back into this propaganda piece, because in a true propaganda film movie like this, you're going to have unlimited funds or unlimited funding and unlimited staff to do all these edits. This would take many, many hours to get this crafted the way they wanted it. And a typical individual person doing a documentary is not going to have that. Lots of changes and edits were done to get this carefully crafted down to a 90-minute documentary that throws the whole family under the bus. Now, we know Kamel is 100% victim in this case, and the fact that they're even lumping her into this is disgusting to me.
Yeah.
Now, it goes on, it says, once again, the focus quickly turns to Alex Jones, bashing his fans and their depth of research. Why? Apparently, Mr. Barsanti has done extensive research on every Alex Jones fan, past, present, right? Or else, why would he make such a ridiculous statement? Several times in Chris Barsanti's review, David is connected to the imaginary alt-right movement without proof. But that is to be expected in these 5 reviews. Barsanti makes it sound as if all conspiracy theorists, or whatever that keyword is supposed to mean to him, are not, next page, open to the possibility that David committed these crimes. That is simply not true. So the research that we've done in the group, the Justice for David Crowley group, is to show that the evidence does support that David could not and did not kill himself. He did not and could not kill his wife or his daughter. It's pretty evident to see that the government was also not involved with this, but we know that David didn't do it. So I don't know what else there is to conjure up here in these reviews, it's, well, then it only gets better here, Greg. Look at the next sentence. Quote, we see a couple self-proclaimed citizen investigators dismiss the notion that the crime scene was what it appeared to be. Barsanti continues, darkly hinting at outside forces that wanted Crowley silenced. I do dismiss the notion that the crime scene was what it appeared to be if someone is going to tell me the crime scene provided evidence of David's guilt, especially since the crime scene had to be updated twice within a month of finding the bodies. Why is it this fact was never mentioned in any of the film reviews or articles about David Crowley? We'll stop there for a minute here. There's a lot in there, Greg.
Once again, we get the self-proclaimed citizen almost word for word as the other article. I see what you're saying.
Just to be fair, and Sophia may not know this, but when we did the interviews, Greg, they did ask if we wanted our names to be shown, and below our name what our title was, or what did we want our titles to be for this film. You and I looked at each other like, I don't know. You could put something, I think we said, let's put something like citizen investigators. I don't know. We didn't spend more than 5 seconds thinking about it. And that's what they happened to use. So
yeah.
I wouldn't say self-proclaimed, but they did ask for a title beneath our names as far as how we relate to this case. And that's what we just happened to use. And I think that's fair. I still agree with that. I wouldn't change it if we redid it today.
No, me either.
We're darkly hinting at outside forces. And then this, once again, I do believe is getting back to this government did it, shadowy government, some dark ops project killed him because he was getting to be too famous. I don't believe that for a second. And I don't think Greg does either.
No, I don't believe that either. I don't think it was outside forces at all.
I think if you go back and watch what we said, Greg, on the 2 or 3 minutes that were even in the film, is just saying, look at the evidence and look at where it takes you. It may not be David doing it. It may not be, who knows what it is. But the official narrative, the official story cannot be true. It's too loosey-goosey. That's all that we were saying. I don't think we were leading anyone down some dark hole or rabbit hole of a shadowy government doing this. We just said it does not look, it looks staged. It looks like it's a set up stage scene.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's interesting, right. Again.
They changed twice in the first month. Things were changed by the police, not by us. This is their words, not ours. So,
yeah, they never go after the police, what the police did wrong, or really anything like that. I mean, they didn't even get to talk to the police because the police at that point didn't want to talk to them. They didn't want to be part of this film either. The only reason they were is because they got lumped in with what Tom Lydon did. That's it. But they're not in, aside from Tom Lydon's news report, they're not in this film. But it's made to look like they were filmed, like this was filmed for Eric Nelson's film when Tom Lydon is talking to those cops. But at this point, even the cops wanted nothing to do with this case. They were completely done and over it because they did so much wrong. I can clearly see that. They don't want to be questioned about, not that Tom Lydon would have questioned them about any of these important facts. Obviously he didn't, or if he did, that got cut out. But you could tell they really wanted to make sure that nobody asked them these relevant questions that we've been asking here for a long time.
And key word is relevant. You know, I mean, there could be a documentary made, an entire documentary on this, made just focusing on the police errors and the investigation mistakes on all this. And that goes on to say, for people not familiar with the case, is that there was not 1 or 2 or 3 slip-ups by investigators here. There were dozens of things that were wrong or inappropriate, from the Minnesota State to the Apple Valley Police to the special the FBI group, or the Minnesota what's the word I'm looking for, Sophia? Special
BCA.
Bureau, BCA. So the Minnesota BCA.
BCA.
There was errors made at all levels of the agencies involved in this investigation. It wasn't just a few bad cops here, a few bad cops there. There were errors made, and we can't get around them, as far as they're not easily explained, as far as were they just errors, were they slip-ups, or were they done on purpose. There's some very strange things in this whole investigation that took place, and rightly so, for us pointing the finger to look at them. And all we're doing is exposing them, just saying, here's what took place and here's what did not take place. Now, it says Mr. Barsanti then moves on to the spooky movie trailer David and the Gray State team released back in 2012, which included a mysterious entity implanting RFID chips into children, leaving a triangular scar probably meant to evoke the Trilateral Commission. Very good point. I'm more concerned about David, Kamel, and Ronnie discussing a mysterious entity following them into their final days. But you're right, they do that. The mysterious RFID chips is a way to track people and put their banking on digital currency inside of the implantable into the body. There would be no cash, there'd be no currency, there'd be no coins. Everyone's tracked that way, which I think is also a very true thing that could be coming into fruition here as well, because what that does, it enables the dissenters, the government dissenters, to be turned off. You cannot partake in the economy if your wallet is turned off. If your digital ID is shut off, you can't buy and sell things. You can't do anything. Basically, you're in a prison with no walls. That's what they're trying to do. And I think that is true. It had nothing to do with the movie, though, but that scene was mentioned in the trailer, and rightly so. I think that's a very good scene in that trailer.
Yeah, and it's interesting that he connects it with the trilateral, the pyramid. I connected it with the pyramid, things like that. But the Trilateral Commission, I never actually really made that connection. So maybe Chris Barsanti, is that? Yeah, maybe he's done a little more research on this type of stuff than I thought. So even he is speculating, assuming
that either. It does look like a Trilateral Commission kind of a logo.
It does. Yeah, you're right.
I always connected the pyramid and the all-seeing eye with the Illuminati.
Right. I mean, if he's going, this is like a darker place, the darker thing, I would think he would try to connect it with that. And the Trilateral Commission, I don't know. I mean, I know they're not very nice people and everything, but that may be, for me, that may be giving them too much credit. I don't know.
Now, finally, it goes on to say the footage of Kamel is particularly tragic, Barsanti writes, given that she was the one financially and emotionally supporting Crowley through his artistic misadventures, only to possibly fall prey to the same delusional fever that overtook him near the end. Now, this is a very disgusting phrase, I think. Now he's throwing him, David, under the bus, Kamel under the bus, and saying that she's the one supporting him financially and emotionally. We got a lot of this right when the case came out as well, as far as David, who was broke, he didn't have any money, and that's why he was in this depression that caused this double murder, and he didn't have any money. So we know that's not true. We've already done episodes on that. We've covered that ground. He had just won a contract, a movie deal, so it was not financially. And even when he was working these 2 or 3 businesses on the side of these side jobs that he was indeed doing, although he wasn't making it rich, he was bringing in money. He was self-employed on some of these jobs and running these small businesses. She herself was making money, but I don't think she was supporting him. He was very emotionally guy, and I think he was very didn't need emotional support either. He was very strong in his IQ and his brain level, very intelligent. That I don't think he needed support. But this article mentions that she was doing all this work and led herself down that same rabbit hole because she wasn't even working at that time. She had quit her job back late April, early May. Yes,
I think.
And so he doesn't mention this in the review, but she wasn't working. Really, David was supporting her, to be accurate. I think that she had a book deal that she was going to be writing some kind of a book on dietary nutrition or something, I believe. That wasn't really fully vetted out, I don't think. But correct, she had left her job at the time and was starting her own baking business and things like that as well.
Yeah, I would think it would be even better to say, I mean, if we look at the $14,000 check that's there, David's dad may be the one who's actually supporting both of them. There may be a good case for that logic too there.
One could argue. Yeah, on the doorstep for the newer listeners, that was left along with the gifts and the Christmas gifts was a check from David's father for $14,000 as a potential Christmas gift, a year-end tax donation, gift. Who knows what it was for, what the intent was, but they were not hurting for money, and they had very well articulate budget pages in the journal and the notes that came out later in the investigation of how they tracked their money, their utilities, their monthly bills versus what was coming in versus their mortgage payments and things like that. So they were very budgeting type people that had that on the brain. Now, Greg, you finish up here with you're in bold print after the review. It says, overall, I wonder if Barsanti truly believes David was a murderous alt-right paranoiac, or if he realized an article about when fantasies kill equaled clickbait. Your guess is as good as mine. Yeah, now we're talking clickbait with titles like this. So how many is that, Greg? Are we on the fifth one?
Yeah, that covers all 5 of the first 5 there, and maybe that's a good place to actually stop.
Yeah, that was the first 5, and I think, Sophia, if you remember this, weren't the first 5 out there right away? Yeah, before the other folks, the general public started watching the film and leaving reviews on Rotten Tomatoes. These first 5 are out there way in advance, as if they all dropped at the same time, and that's the ones he covered here in his book. And it does make me believe that these were in the can, ready to go, and ready to assist with the propaganda of Mr. Eric Nelson.
That was actually before my time in the group, so I honestly have no clue when the articles came out. But
okay, and before you joined, we were talking about that as Greg and I think that when the Rotten Tomatoes page for this movie came out and it was out there right away, within a couple days, these reviews, all 5 of them were out there, and then there was no activity for a while after that. They were just dumped right away, almost as if the folks didn't have time to even watch the movie yet, and there were these 5 articulate reviews already written.
Yeah,
so that they were dumped ahead of time, right as it became available as part of the orchestrated event, I'll call it. So that leaves us, Greg, on page 128 to pick up the next episode for the podcast here starting on 129 with the title Alec Wilkinson, who plays another hefty role in this propaganda piece, Greg.
He sure does. Big role, I would think. We still have the paper copies, Dan. I think you're the one that sent me that you got that from me. Thank you. I still have it somewhere.
I have those. I sent you some. We do have the paper copies when these came out, and the printouts along with the article from Alec Wilkinson in the what article in the New Yorker?
Yes. Yeah. Death of a Dystopian. So that should be fun.
Yeah, I'm gonna have fun with that one. I've been doing my research.
That will be good. That's all I've got for today. Anything else, Greg?
I think just lastly, let's just end it with here. I was just looking up. We talked about the Rotten Tomato meter or the tomato meter. It's at 100%. 18. This is so. Last time I checked it, there were just 5. So there's 18 people who have actually reviewed this. All most of them before the end of 2017. Looks like the latest one was in February 18th, 2019. So they all have very nice things to say about it.
It's still at 100%.
It's at 100%. That's at 100% for the critics, right? For the whatever they call them, the all critics at 100%, top critics at 100%. 18 of them. The tomato meter, the percentage of approved tomato meter critics who have given this movie a positive review. So 18 reviews, they're all positive.
Wow.
Now for the audience, it's a little bit different. They're at 60% positive, over 100 ratings. It looks like 3.4 out of 5 average rating.
Well,
so
what we may do, Greg, when these episodes are done with the book, is to delve into that audience one and have some shows on that.
Oh,
that's going to give us, I think, a very more realistic review of the film versus these approved critics.
All right. I like that idea. Yep.
I would put my money into that 60% as far as I think we're going to get some very truthful commenters out there versus these the reviewers, the official reviewers that are pushing an agenda.
Sounds good, my friends. Any final words here?
None for me. Nope.
Sophia?
Sorry, I was
Okay.
muted.
It's all right.
No, I really don't have any final words. I'm just looking forward to the next one where I get to expose somebody for being a quack.
Oh, okay. I hope you can wait a whole month for that, because we'll be back July 1st.
Yeah, I can wait. So it's worth the wait. But
All
anyway, it was good to be on another podcast. It's been a while.
Absolutely. And Dan, this was episode 29, you said? Is that what it was?
29th. This is the
29th.
29th one we've done.
All right. Well, there we go. And we'll be back again July 1st. Expect us then.
Awesome. Sounds good. Thanks,
All right.
guys.
All right. God bless everyone. Good night or good
Good
day.
night.
Welcome back, everyone. So tonight we're going to be doing something a little different. I know I promised some people after they discovered this, I'm going to give them a shout out here in a second. I promised them I'd give them a few weeks, give some time so that way they can go and if they want to come forward with the stuff, they totally should. They could. Their call, either way. I give some time, so I wanted to go and bring this to light. I was just recently informed of this. I don't know why I didn't look at this before. But the thing is, the negatives on photos they're pretty remarkable. They show us an invert, if you will, to what's really going on in an image. So you may not be seeing everything, right? Maybe there's going to be a color there that's just slightly distorted. There could be smears on the ground, right? I think we've all, like when we were kids, had that one friend or family member pick their nose a lot, smeared on the wall, right? Photo negatives can bring that stuff up too, right? They can bring all sorts of things. Not quite like a black light though, okay? Which is fine, because we don't need a black light for this scenario here, but we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna be inverting the image, right? So I'll show you guys how to do that. I'm gonna go step by step. This is just the initial photos. You can see right now over in the little my little notepad I got on the screen, which is this WordPad, let's be honest, but you can see that I've got a few things bullet pointed. These are going to be the photos we're looking at. These are the direct photos that we got from the FOIAs. You can see these photos on the Graystage WordPress.com, I believe is what it is, or .org, something like this. But at Greg's website, you can see them. You can go and see them through the Justice for David Crowley and Family. You can see these all over the place. Even if you're in another group, I'm sure they've got some of these photos lying around, right? I don't go through their stuff, so I don't care because they're wrong about a lot. So, besides the point. The other side of the argument, right? Is David guilty? They think he is. So it's their choice to believe that he's guilty, right? However, we've already been able to prove 100-fold he's not, right? And that's fine. But we're going to take a look at these photos. These are actual crime scene photos. We're not going to look at the bodies as usual. I don't show those, okay? But we're going to be looking at the inverted images. Now, a lot of this is going to be new to me. I've already had the data told to me, what these photos show. I'm going to go over live and explain what these things mean. So, first thing on this first photo here, this is the DSC_0431 photo. This is already after the bodies have been moved. But this is where the bodies were at. Now, allegedly David, Kamel, and Renea were killed here. Or if you go off the narrative, he killed Renea and then Kamel and then killed himself, right? Well, we already know that's impossible because of mold. lack of blood, yada, yada, yada. There's a long list of things as to why it's impossible for him to have killed his wife and child and then himself. Especially in that order, which they've never really come out and said, for sure this is the order, but they do believe that he did that. I would love to interview those police officers and ask them why they believe that, because I can already destroy their narrative and from every single angle. So I'd love to go and hear what they have to say about that, because I guarantee you they'd be walking right into a wall of traps. They can't answer. There's nothing they can do. We know that he is innocent here. He was killed. But if we go off that narrative, this carpet should be soaked with blood. Where's the blood? All right, that's the first question. Question number 2. They were sitting there for that long and all this fluid's coming out of them. Back of that carpet, that little bottom part right there that they've got flipped up, should be soaked. Where is it? And it would be visible, mind you. Where is it? See, I don't see any. So this is like very, very topographic, right? This is just, okay, probably the wrong word. It's just over on the top layer. Carpet got a little bit on there. Okay. So that asks you at the same time, can we say that they've been there for a while? This is fluid that this carpet would be absorbing, right, in the fibers, and that would get into the bottom of the carpet, but we don't see anything there. That's pulled up. You can see right here, you guys should be able to see my cursor here. Right here, let me, let's go ahead and highlight right here. And I'll make a quick layer just so we can go to highlight it further. One second, everybody. I have a quick thing I gotta take care of. First, I thought it was my wife coming in here. I can't sleep out there. All right, oh, that's fine. Nope, that was my son. Alrighty, so let's go ahead. Let's reduce this opacity. This is the area I'm talking about here. All right, this area here that was highlighted, and I'll just show it again. There we go. That's where there was a bullet that went to the ground, right through the ground and into the basement wall, right? But yet, why would it be fired unless it went through somebody, right? Was this a misfire? Was this, there's a lot of questions as what was this, right? We can already basically pinpoint a lot about it, but just for pure speculation points, let's just go and say, we'll just say it was just, this is a bullet went through here, right? Now I can get into the details about the bullet, but that's not the part that matters here right now. When we're looking at this, we're looking at, we're just looking at, well, this is on the floor right next to where David's body was at. There should be some liquid somewhere in this area. Okay, there's not. Okay, so without further ado, let's go ahead and delete that areas we don't need. That areas we don't need that highlighted quite yet. Let's get into the inverting. So it's very, very simple. We get right into the invert. It's just a little adjustment layer. You can see here, should be able to see it highlighted here. Let me see if I can, oops, oh, whoopsies. Make sure I can see this. Invert. Yeah, right there. So you guys can see it. Okay, perfect. Just want to make sure you guys can see that. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to hit invert. Looks a little weird. It's almost like a photo negative. Now, what does this show us here? Well, we can do things like this, and we can now see what everything is. Now, this may not look like a whole much right here at first, but you're going to want to pay attention to where the bodies are at, right? Where they were located. That part matters. You're going to want to pay attention where the blood's at. That part matters. All right? So all this is doing is basically taking a color and it's shifting it to the opposite end. Essentially is what it's doing. It's not an exactly, you know, by me stating that, that's like literally like talking about it in a very underwhelming way, but essentially it's kind of what it's doing. It's shifting colors. So if you got something that's light, now it's dark. If you got something that's dark, now it's light. Okay? So what do we've got here? We get the hair. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to zoom in. Let's take a look at this right here. So we got some interesting stuff here. And I'm not even going to go over the data, right? That's not what we're looking at here. We're just looking at the photos. Okay, so we're looking at some irregularities. Some of the things we do know are going to be right here. It's decomp fluid. Now check this. You can directly see where it's all at. All of it. Now, this right here, we can use a lot of things for here. So for those that are interested in, well, what about these scratch marks? Does this say something? No. This right here appears to be done by the dog. Okay. At least a dog. I'm not going to say the dog, but a dog. At least. Now, there's a few things that this could also mean here, okay? Because you're going to have these little things like this spot here. Could a dog do this? Yeah, if it bumps top of its paw, it could kick it, right? So it's got to be something that's round. Okay, so we're looking at things like this. Well, these appear to be claw marks. Is this something a person can do? No, not like that. You've got a point on these. So these aren't scratch marks by people. Just to go and clarify this. This right here is not. Some of these appear to be like, it could have been a person bumped it with their foot, a toe, yada, yada, yada. A lot of things that can happen here. We'll move up here. You can see what color the blood looks like, right? Now this may seem just like, okay, well, you're just showing me that the colors are inverted. Pay attention to color. This matters. Whether anybody wants to believe it or not, it really does. Okay, on this wall, we're going to be able to see these things. Well, we see a little extra that we're not normally really seeing. You're seeing around the blood. Now let's go ahead. Let's go and zoom in. Now pay close attention. Now keep in mind, this has got a slight blur on it. They were moving. This photo got a little bit of movement. So this is going to be normal to have a little, almost like an aura, if you will, because of the movement. It's a blur. So you see a little bit, but now you're seeing this weird angular blur. Now that's not a thing. So what's this angle here? But at the same time, you see the angle of the blood splatter, right? Because this has been dropped, right, from a bucket or something like this. Well, get some weird angles and some things here. Is it possible? Maybe. I can't shoot it down, to put it very, very bluntly, right? This is the first thing. Now, this photo doesn't really show a whole lot. And I will be the first to tell you that day in and day out. This photo has got very, very little data that we can really see much in. Other than we're able to confirm that, yes, this does just simply that. It just inverts the colors is all we're able to see. And I anticipated this. Just looking at this, we already knew a few things we're going to be able to pick up on are going to be the decon fluid. So we're going to be able to see what this looks like. So we're going to have something to kind of compare to. All right. So if you're to look at with the browns, this is going to have decomp fluid. This is not. This is decomp. This is not. Decomp. Okay, this turns it like a blue, this brown, right? Or on this blue right here. It'll reverse it. Okay, this just becomes much darker. This becomes blue. This becomes even more blue. Blue, 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 blue. And you see the blues. So you're seeing this. So if there's blues here, what's causing this blue? Well, it's decomp fluid, right? Let's decomp fluid here. There's a bunch here, 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 here. Let's look at it a little closer. Well, now we got, looks like to be up here, maybe? Huh. Okay. Well, that's interesting. Because it just appears to be right here in this photo, but you look in here and now it looks like it's up here. There's some stuff up here now. Well, why is that? Right? So you can start looking at these things and you start seeing, it's like, well, what is this? What exactly does this mean then? If we're seeing this extra fluid here, interesting, right? Those are carpet fibers. It appears to be, yeah, some carpet fibers, then the whole, but still, nothing too crazy in here. Not really any changes, that we should be expecting to see. This looks like it's just the opposite side of the design, right? That's all it is. So let's move on. Let's see what this next one looks like. This is going to be BCA 5131. So same thing. Let's go ahead and invert it. Now we see some stuff. So what's this exactly? Well, let's zoom in and take a look. Is that hair? That would be impossible. If that's hair, that should be impossible to be underneath there right now. Damn near impossible, especially as that looks like it's almost like it's been there for a bit. Where's that flesh? Is that decomp fluid? Well, if there was decomp fluid, there would be more of it. Right? So, what is this? Good question. All right, let's keep going and look over here. So this is where the bullet came in. So there should be, hypothetically, I would assume, some burn marks. It's going pretty quick, right? That goes to the carpet. That's good. That should singe it a little bit. Looks like it. Looks like a little bit of melting because that's getting a hot bullet going right into this. Yeah, that's. We can even get a little closer. Definitely some meltage going on in here. But it definitely tore through, and you can see that it's, like I said, something hot went through. We have some of the bullet fragments here. Bullet was shattering. It was mushroomed out, right? So if it mushroomed out and it was doing this shouldn't have been like this going. It wouldn't have gone like this out through a human skull like this. It wouldn't have come out that way. Unless it was like point blank. But how is that possible? Especially considering there's no blood. You get to see a lot of this bullet, like the bullet damage. You get to see all the different scuff marks. This could have been from previous scuff marks even. Because this bullet here, just being there, it's not going to do this. So what's causing all this? Is this a previous mess? Now, granted, some of this stuff could have just been attached to the bottom of this because, yeah, went through here. But at the same time, you got to look at like how this came out. If you're shooting into it, you should see some of it. It should be more concaved in. And we're seeing this weird splinterage, if you will, of the wood. It's just seems odd to me. Now, that's just opinion at this point. I can get into it more, and that's going to be analysis on the wood itself. Is it, obviously, is this real wood? What type of wood is it? There's a lot of things we can get into. We can actually break it down and further analyze this. Is this the type of thing that this wood would do, right? You shoot into it, is it going to splinter out like this? If you got something to kind of catch it, is this something that's going to splinter out like this? So if somebody's got firearms, especially this alleged Springfield XD40, if you guys got something like this and you get a chance, I'm all for it if you guys can get footage. I don't mean just images. I want footage if possible. But if you can get images, it's fine. That works too. But I would prefer footage. If you can fire into different types of wood, like wood flooring to be specific, because this, we're looking at things like, is this heat treated? There's all sorts of chemicals that can go into it. So it's not just a standard, like, oh, I hacked down, this tree here, right? I hacked down a spruce or pine or oak, right? And then took the block and set it right there, right? No, it's not like that. You have more things that are going into this because this is a flat piece of wood. So this has gone through some process. So we'd need to see this because those chemicals can now, they really adjust and change a lot of like how the wood actually will interact with other objects, with damage, things like this. So, but if somebody can get that, that'd be great. So I can go and showcase that. Of course, you'll get due credit. And for the people, of course, I forgot to go and do this first thing. The people that gave me this this idea to look at this was actually Sophia and Catherine. Sophia was the one who actually brought it up to me first. Very, very interesting. And they were talking about how they had been looking at this for a while. And they weren't like trying to hide it from anybody, keep this in mind. They weren't trying to hide it, but they wanted to really look at this. Now, when they said that, absolutely shocked me. I'm thinking here, well, I've done this before. I've used this method before. Why didn't I think of this? It's a good question. I don't know why I thought of it. I didn't think of it, but I have used it. So it's curious, but it is something that it's proving to have some results here that are rather interesting. It's actually giving us more questions. What type of wood was this here? And does it splinter if shot into? Right? And then on top of that we know what type of bullet what the police had actually claimed this bullet was what type of bullet it was, yada, yada. We got all the details on this. This would have had to have been mushroomed out. Based on what I can see here. As we're looking at the actual size here, this would have just been yanked off while entering the wood. So this is probably a harder wood, if I had to guess. Obviously hardwood floor, so it makes sense. But I almost want to say it's an oak. I could be wrong, but I'm no wood expert, so. But rather interesting with this photo here, because now we're seeing all these splinters, and then basically we're seeing them way out here. Was it all collected like right here on this side? And if so, hypothetically, wouldn't there be some wood attached to this side? Well, I'm not really seeing any wood attached to this side. Is it something they would have cleaned off? I mean, the police did do some things that would have technically been like, well, what are you doing here? Amateur, come on now. So, but I digress. Let's get into the next photo. So next we're going to be looking at BCA 5101, which is this one. This is where the bodies were, right? Kamel was here. Rania was here. David was here. But see, here's the thing. you can see it from this photo. If David was this way, why does it look more like he was this way? Because there's very, very little decomp fluid over here from what we can see on here. And why is there a giant smear here? Why does it look like there's a bunch of smearing here? Now, this could have easily just been done with, this could have been something that when the medical examiners moved the bodies, right? To some degree, that could be true, because this looks pretty consistent for the most part, straight across. Also, let's take note on this. We're going to zoom in here. I'll have to go and definitely take a look. We'll go and see, but this right here is looking like mold to me. That looks like mold. I don't know about you guys, but that is what that looks like to me. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. It appears to be. And what's interesting is who had mold on their body that was in this area. Well, we know that was Renia. I believe she was at an angle like this, I believe. But that would have been outside of characteristic there, because she would have been like this, I believe. I can't show it. Make sure it doesn't pop up. There we go. I'm gonna go take a look real quick. I'm gonna just explain things as I pull them up. So let's see. Where are you? Oh no. Not in here. Oh, it is actually. Okay, here we go. So we're basically, I just need to go and see and make sure the bodies, that was the exact angle. I have an idea, a rough idea in my head. Nothing's perfect when it comes to this. I have to refer to these all the time. No, it's not it either. Be this one. There we are. That would have been right about where her head is, if I'm not mistaken. But even then, in that photo of where the bodies are at, it does appear there's a bunch of decomp fluid that doesn't match up perfectly. So let me go ahead and take a look at this real quick. Her body, her head would have been like right around here, it appears to be, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe over here. But yeah, her body was more this way right here. Kamel's was like, she was in this area here, and David was, his one, and David's is more, this is pretty consistent with David right here. So you got David in this angle here, Kamel right here, and then Renia right here. All right. Now the other thing is, now this makes sense if you can go and go over the bodies, or not the bodies, but the actually, yeah, that's where the head would have been. Holy crap. Hang on, I just gotta double check this. I gotta make sure that ring is there. So we're looking at this blue ring here. You see where the decomp fluid is? Where it kind of cuts through right here. All right, so it looks like it kind of goes like this. So No kidding. Yeah, that's where her head was. That fits in perfectly right there. So that's where Renea's head was. Kamel was pretty much all the way up against this. There's even a book here. I'm curious as to what book that is. Actually. And why is there a book? I mean, kids, I get it. You know, there could it's just because of kids, but there's a book right here. But regardless of that, Kamel's hands were also supposed to be underneath her body. So we're looking at a lot of different things here. So now we have to look at body placement. So we know that Renea was killed first. Well, that makes it impossible for her to be on top of Kamel based on order. She should not be on top of Kamel. It should be she's below Kamel, but she's not. We also know Kamel was the last to die. Why? Because of the lack of mold. And even then, I really don't wish anybody to see this at all. So just be forewarned. But anybody, if you have seen the bodies, okay, I'm sorry you got to see those. I'm sorry you witnessed that. It's horrendous. But for those that have, I'm 100% correct right here when I say this. There was mold underneath her chin too. This mold, hers was severe. She was dead for a bit longer and left exposed longer than David. So David probably died a bit after. He died sometime after. She's got a severe amount. Also keep that in mind. Mold grows. I mean, this is where everything connects. That's the problem with looking at this case. Everything connects so extensively that if you don't have the data on hand, it doesn't seem to make sense. So don't worry, this will be explained. Trailer 2, I got to talk to Greg tomorrow and see if we're going to be able to get that audio for the trailer 2. But if not, I will have trailer 2. I'm aiming to get that out tomorrow, first thing, midday-ish. Aiming. Okay, just throwing that out there. I have a lot going on tomorrow. There's a podcast tomorrow and everything, but aiming about midday or so, about 4 o'clock. I'm aiming to get that done, hopefully. So, fingers crossed. There won't be a stream after this. Just an FYI for anybody that's interested in the gaming stuff. There's no gaming stream tonight. Tomorrow night there will be. And yes, I do understand Super Bowl. I don't care. I don't watch it. I only will like the ads anyways. And it's usually just only movie trailers. But I'm aiming to get this out tomorrow first thing. As soon as I can. So expect probably around midday. But there will be a trailer tomorrow. So it's for Death of the Family. Trailer 2. But yeah, this photo here, there's a lot of mold on it. Now, if I were to invert this, which I'm not going to do for you guys, I'm sorry. For those that absolutely feel the need to see it, if you need to see it, please invert it yourself. I can't do that for you. I don't feel it's right. All right. So, but that's that white spot there. That is without a doubt. That is where Renea's head was, right here. Not even if ands or buts. That is where her head was. It lines up perfectly to where her body was aligned. But the thing is, like I said, this is the part that doesn't make any sense. So you have this decomp fluid here, and we're going to get into the invert here in a second, so you guys will be able to see this more clearly and see the areas that are a little suspicious here. But there's an L-shaped pattern here. Well, J-shaped rather, but right angle, if you will. That's going on right here. Well, there's no body here. Why is there movement like this? And if you were to see photos when the bodies were there, it's the same pattern as here. So this we can't even say the medical examiners. We can't. So that makes zero sense. So that should be raising some alarms here. This looks like draggage. In fact, this isn't even looking like draggage. This is dragging. You can see it. Look at the floor being matted. I'll bring it in a little farther. You can see this is pushed this way. If the body's being dragged this way, it would be pushing that way. But it's not, it's pushed this way. Right? Who does that? Once again, I'm calling out those people that they thought they were going to get away with this. We're almost there. We almost can start going after people. We're going to be able to start not actually going after them, but we're going to be able to start proving some things here real soon. And that's when we're going to be able to take it up with whoever we need to. But the police are going to get back involved in this. I can feel it. We are close. Very, very close. And for those that decide to commit this is a warning to you. You might want to start running, because the cops are going to be coming. There's going to be some prosecution coming for you. We will ensure that. Well, I don't want to say ensure. We're going to try and get this case going again. Cold cases happen all the time, and cold cases they get reopened and solved. Ones that just they couldn't solve before, but you know what? This is pretty damn close. We've got a lot of things going here. So for those, this is a warning to you. This case is going to get solved. You're going to get in trouble. You're going to jail, hopefully. But you might want to start thinking about things right now. Because we're getting closer. The cops didn't do a good job on this case. We will. So that leads me to my next point. Thank you all for that have looked into this case. Thank you guys. So let's get into the invert. Ooh, now things get interesting. Now you can start seeing the drag marks even more clearly. Now you're seeing some interesting things going on here. Now these not pools, but there's locations now that they're shapes. They're distinct shapes, which means pooling, which means drainage. This is good for the case. Now we see some things that are interesting about this here. Is now some of these things are going to stand out more. They're going to stand out like a sore thumb. And the thing is, we can use these photos right here with this initial photo we've got over here, the DC_0431. We're going to be able to use that as an example because we've got, this is moved, pretty sure. Let's take a look. Okay, that's right here. It's the bottom part of the curve. Okay, it wasn't moved, so that's good. Pretty consistent. Now we know this was taken after. Why? Because this rug is still down. Okay. But now we're seeing some things. What's this right here? Do we have a photo of that? No, we don't. But that's got me asking some questions. What is that? It's awfully dark. Is that a scuff mark or is that blood? Appears to have a reddish tint. Well, here's the great thing about this. See, now there's a bunch of pixels here. Now, we know this was done... I want to say it's on a DSLR. I'm not 100% sure. This isn't crystal clear, but this is highly pixelated. This doesn't look like it's probably a decent camera, but nothing like, I would assume not very high end, but this appears to be red here. Now, here's the great thing. Notice how I have this color over here. You guys should be able to see this here. Perfect. You guys are able to see right up there. This area here. Now, this is important. This square here, this white square, we're going to go take this color real quick. Let's take a quick little sample of it. Whoops, wrong one. Huh, it's an orange. Well, if you mix orange and the green and all this, yeah, this looks like it's blood. So that looks like that's blood. That's dried blood right there, most likely. What about right here? Right here? Ah, now we're seeing the green. Well, let's take a look over here. Are these... This is just standard the greenish brown and yellows. Okay. You can use this method. It's not 100%, but you can use this. If you're curious about any of the colors on this, the pixels don't lie. All right. And when I say that, I take that with a slight grain of salt because technically people can hide things inside of a pixel. We know this from the I think it was a 1990 case about the Russian spies that were here, right? They were hiding things in pixels. Just data. So could the police be hiding things? I doubt it. That's why you cannot use this as 100%. This is not something we would hold up in court. But you can see this here. You can see the colors differ. This should be alarming. The color here, okay, I'll show you. I'm going to do a quick little snip and I'm going to paste it here and I'll show you guys what I'm talking about here. So, if we were to take a picture of where this is at, the couch, just standard couch. Go ahead, I'll get a couple samples here. So, we're going to go with the lighter one first, and I'll show you guys. Go ahead and copy this. Where is it? Copy. And I'm going to go paste this real quick. All right. This is over in this area. Okay. That's this general area over here. All right. Let's go ahead and work out a new one real quick. Oh. This was from up here. Okay. Now, look how close these are. So let's go ahead and let's bring this down. So we got a comparable size. It's roughly the same right here. So you see this little gap, if you will. This little area right about there. Okay. In fact, just to make it exact where it's at, let's get it as close as I can. Should be this little gap. That's where the couch lies. Okay. Now, we're going to just name this couch color range. Okay. Let's go ahead and we're going to go and take a picture or get a color sample of this. Get about dead center right about here. You can see it's a big change. Right about there. It's pretty good. Okay. So, first one is this. This is the dead center of this little splotch right here. Now I can even get in a little farther. We can go like this, and we can get another sample. It's right about there. There's not much difference here, right? So let's go ahead and get this one first. And just so you guys can see this comparison. Now, this matters. Okay? Just make that very clear. This matters. When there's discoloration like this, this means there's something else. This is foreign material, more than likely. Okay, when I say more than likely, it's a very high chance it is. Doesn't mean guaranteed, because once again, you can have data manipulation. This is directly from the police. So, hypothetically, there should be no fudging around, right? Yeah. Is it impossible? No. But all right. We know both these are going to be from this one, but I'm going to go ahead and show it. All right. Let's go ahead and get our next one. Let's get this lined up as best as we can. It's pretty close. All right. All right. So let's go and compare. If we were to go and just compare these alone, just these colors, we already see there's a huge difference. Well, I'll be damned. Now, can this happen? Yeah, this can happen on furniture. Is it a common occurrence? No. If it's using the same fabric, same color, all this, then we're looking at things like, could it be a burn? Could it be, a stain? But then you got to look at the positioning. This is going on that curve, starting to curve down the bottom of the little cushion there. Is it likely this could happen from just like, let's say, barbecue sauce or ketchup or something, right? Something with a reddish tint. Has to be. Why? Why do we know this? Well, look at where it's at. It's leaning towards red. It's on the orange side, right? Well, now we got to go and start looking at the mix. If you were to go and put red in with this, with that color there, what color would it turn into? That's what we have to look at. Guarantee if you throw it through a color mixer, you're going to see that'll align with color blood. Guarantee it. But now the question is why? Why is there blood here? There's no blood anywhere really else other than this little alleged splatter, or spatter, if you will. There's some on the smears, computer, all this. Now, why is David missing his left hand? Now, this is where we have to get into some other things here. Is we know we got his fingerprints. Now we need to check which hand. He's missing a hand. So isn't it possible somebody got rid of the hand, ripped it off? Had it torn off somehow? It's possible. The thing is here, I'm pretty sure it's all, if I'm not mistaken, I believe it's all his right hand, where we see all of his fingerprints at. Did they test the wall for his fingerprints? No. They didn't even test it. Did they test the computer? Yeah. It's Kamel's blood. They got David's fingerprints. Then it's all, I mean, we can honestly, anybody gets a hold of the fingerprints, you'd be able to actually be able to go and figure this out. You could flip it over and see. Do these match David's? Probably find it does. And it's probably on his right hand. If I had to guess. I don't think it's his left. I think it's his right. And that's the hand he's just ironically missing. Because Paleo ate it, right? Yeah? No, the narrative already proved wrong. So can we really assume that? No. Can't. It's not fair at that point. They've already been wrong about the narrative, so couldn't they be wrong about Paleo? Absolutely. Did they test him for blood? Did they test him for anything? No. They even told the vet not to, or the shelter not to even clean him. So that makes it even more suspicious. Why would they do that? We get colors right here. This is consistent. You got fabric, you're going to have a variety of colors with fabric, right? But they're going to be in a range. Be a little bit of a larger range, right? But if you get now all of a sudden the same liquid, you're going to see the general area right there where the point of contact, that's going to be, yeah, that's collected. That's bundled up there pretty good. So that's going to be pretty consistent. And we're seeing that. Okay, so now this makes this interesting here. All right. Well, we'll just say, okay, that's fine. We don't have to go and... You know, we don't have to just keep running with that, right? Not a big deal. There we go, perfect. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at the skin with the invert. We know that doesn't, that's kind of weird here. Now this is consistent. We're looking at some consistent patterns here that line up with, you're carrying blood up with you. It just happens to slosh out. Maybe you're coming down with something, falls down. Maybe, you know, you got a brush or whatever and it kind of flicks. Maybe you're just, you know, your arm is just kind of, you know, just going. It's going in a direction, right? Interesting stuff here. But that doesn't even, doesn't compare to this right here. We see this streak. We're seeing some, it looks like carpet is being pushed here too. So it's almost like he's being pushed in a specific direction. This isn't as hard though. This is like matted. We're seeing another matting over here. It's collected heavily here. Right, this looks like a body was here. You can see the shoulders. Well, this is where you can start comparing sizes. So now all of a sudden, does this fit David's body? Right? Does this match the trajectory of the bullet? We're going to start seeing these things and it doesn't really line up all that well. That's the interesting part here. Then we got to go and pinpoint, okay, well, where exactly was the gun? The gun was over here. Somewhere over in this area. Actually, I take that back. It's probably more over in this area. Well, David's left hand is over this way. Then we got to look at the bullet casings. You got all these other things. They start just putting together a picture that's not the narrative. Okay? Now, this invert just further solidifies these things. That's all this does. This isn't something we're going to be like, okay, let's just throw this at the police, right? And they're going to have to go and look at this again, right? No. You can't just throw that. But then you also could take a look at these other things here that we've got going on here. Okay, these are just things we need to solidify what we've got. Because now we can compare further data. Because now you've got the color data. You mix that in with everything else we've got. That just further here we go. More data, more proof. You know, they don't have artists working for them. They don't have, you know, last I heard, there's no such thing as a forensic artist, as far as I know, right? That'd be kind of cool, but weird. So I'm imagining somebody that's like, you know, okay, yeah, I'm getting off topic here, but yeah, it'd be kind of funny. But we're seeing these hairs. Well, this is where David's body was. Why are all these hairs here? And in fact, what are these hairs? Whoops. Well, it's Kamel's hair. Well, if David died second, why is Kamel's hair under him? Good question, right? Doesn't make any sense. And why does some of this hair look like it was kind of, well, not matted like it should be with all these other patterns here? So my question for those people that were there would be, well, was this hair that was here, was that matted? Was that stuck to the carpet? Is that we're also seeing this here too? What else we got here? Whoops. Now this looks a little weird. What's going on here? Now you got these weird shapes we got to go and look at. What does it piece together with? To me, that looks like a turd. Turd. Little turds here, potentially. Things about this just don't add up. And we know there was turds over in this area. Why? Because, well, turds. And see, I can bring up the body. I already know directly where David's hand was. I know where both of his hands should have been. They don't line up. All right, so let's move on to the next one. So next we have the BCA 5102. It's just another image of where the bodies were at. You can see a better idea of where the bodies were. You know where his head was here. Here's the L shape. We got what it looks to be the body, like the back, shoulders, and all this. That lines up. Does line up with David to some degree. But it's only to some degree. It does look like his body was moved, though. Yeah, it definitely was. That's with his back right there. That's like his back shoulder. That'd be like from the neck to like his right shoulder blade. Or not right, but left shoulder blade. That's what's going on there. Hey, how's it going, Crip Rick? So this right here, his head would have been somewhere around here, if I'm not mistaken. Let's take a look again. Well, I'm not going to show it obviously, but the bodies, but there's a little red object here we've got going on. I'm curious about it. What is that? Well, let's go and see what the invert has to say about it. Interesting. Let's take a look at this area again. A little bigger shot. Now we can see the drag over here. See, it's a lot more visible. The L shape's not quite as visible here, but here it is, just to show. It's the L shape. We can still see it. David's head was somewhere over in, I believe, this range here. Well, what was left of it, which means this would have had to have been his right arm, or left arm here, which doesn't line up with this. Actually, it was more of like roughly in that kind of range. I am doing the inverted images. Has Sophia or Catherine or anybody talked about the inverting? Make it more like a negative, like a photo negative? is you can do that through Photoshop. You're just basically inverting it because now the colors, you're going to be able to see a different picture, a different side of things. A mirror, almost. It's fascinating. So, yeah, it's, they brought it up, told me they didn't want me to go and show it off. They wanted to go and, go over it first and all this. Well, I gave them, I think it's about a month now, 3 weeks to a month, something like this. I gave them. I was going to do it after about 2 weeks, and well, things came up, so. But yeah, we're able to see some things through this. And they brought it up because now the drag marks are even more prominent. You can see it here. This is foolproof. I can show you right here. You can see it here. Looks pretty well matted. Now you see it even more clear. And you can do further editing on this photo to really make it pop. There's all sorts of things you can do. I could go and add all sorts of things. But what's also interesting is this area here. That's where Rhaenyra's head was at. Notice the white discoloration here? That's mold. Now, I don't know if you've seen the bodies. Okay. I will always mention them when it comes to this case. Never going to show them. But if you haven't seen the bodies, I don't wish it upon anybody, but if you have seen them, take a look at her chin. Like underneath her chin area, it's got another white area. We got this here. Now, we could always assume this could be gray matter. This could be all sorts of other things, right? But if you were to go and compare the color here, you can go and compare that to the mold on her body. You can go and compare that, and they're relatively similar. It's interesting. It's to the point where it's suspect, if you will. Yeah, no, it's breaks my heart every single time I see it. I don't want to have to look at it, but sometimes I have to refer back to it just to compare. For instance, body positioning. This was not David's back here, right? If you look at where his body was at the time of the crime scene, which if this is where he allegedly died, right? This is where he was killed. Does this line up with his body? Now, I can go ahead. I could go and do the whole medical examiner's things. And we're going to do over that here in a second. After I get through all the photos, I'm going to line up all the clothes, and we're going to set them on here and see, does that match? I'll tell you right now, I can already see it right now. No. Is now we're looking at body size. We're looking at all this. And even right here, you can already see this looks to be legs. Right here, this looks to be legs and shoulders, if he wasn't face down. Something like this. And I know that looks like something else, but that's besides the point. But you can see there's these weird shapes. And that's the part we want to take consideration of, because these shapes, you can look at body shape. And by comparing body shape, does this look like this could fit David? Does this look like this could fit Kamel? Does this look like it could fit Rhaenyra? Well, obviously not Rhaenyra, that's too big. But you have that shape, and you have this shape. You got these drag marks here. Where's Kamel's decon fluid? Well, there's some area here. Well, a lot of hers, most likely, when it came to her torso, like around her stomach area, her mid-torso-ish, that area, she had a corset on. Okay. Because she had the corset on, that could theoretically, that should be able to hold some of the decon fluid in, right? That should be able to hold some of these bodily fluids from getting out. So it would make sense, to some degree at least, that there would be a part of her body that wouldn't have had much really leaking out. It would have just kind of came out one side or the other rather than just going through. But then again, we also don't know what the corset was made of. If this had any kind of like plastic, things like this, it's not going to seep through generally, right? It can, because it degrades weird. Plastic can break down still. Bacterias, we know I believe it's a fungus that can break plastics down. I think there's some bacteria that can. Not to mention all the different kinds of things that are breaking down the body. Stomach acid, that gets out at all, any kind of bile. that could break it down. That would be in that area too. So therefore, should be able to break down the plastic. So there should be some breakage if there was any that leaked out of the skin, any open area in the skin at all. It could have, and it could have already eaten through the skin. I mean, we've only got a couple photos of the bodies. We don't have the full disclosure, nor do I want to see full disclosure. We don't need it to actually be able to say, no, they didn't. That David did not do this. Yeah. Sure. And I got other photos to show, like there's this one here. You can see this really, really prominent on this one. Drag marks. And just to show, so if I'll give you a couple seconds to look at that, then I'll go and invert it so you can see. All right, let's go to the next one, which is inverted. There we go. Makes it better, but it makes it worse in the darker color. You can see it a lot easier. I can even just go, I believe I should be able to just go like this. Oops. Just to really highlight it. Look at a bigger area. Here we go. And then I'll go ahead and I'll put a white should do it. Right. Which that normally doesn't just occur. That means there had to have been something drug. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to go and make a like that, and then we're going to go, which one was it? It was white that we could do that with. Maybe I'm using the wrong color. Let's try a different color. Let's go with, we'll do green. Oops. And we'll go ahead and, yeah, right here you can already see it. There shouldn't be a straight line. Just to show that. This area here should not be straight. This is almost like, not like precise, but there's a ton of these lines like this when it comes down to this. And shape, lines, color, can't believe I'm saying this, but art is also helping, you know, just basic art principles are helping to go and shed light on this. Gosh, it makes me just really not like these cops that much more. They just did this. They did this case so horribly, just so terribly. But I digress. I can go on and on and on about that for hours. How much I just think the police just fumbled it too hard. But you can see it in some of these other photos. You can see the long lines. This one, you can see it a little bit here. You'll see there's no decomp fluid over here. There would be decomp fluid. So let's get into the next image. Other than that, we're just basically, the only other thing we can see here is you can see that poop is differed. There's a lot going on this too. Dog feces itself has got a lot more data there than a lot of people are even giving it credit for. Because then you also got to look at the dehydration time. Because we know there's poop right here. You can see there's crumbled areas. Police basically stepped in it and just crushed it. But then you're looking at, this is going to come down to how long has the poop been there. Well, it's got a very light or a very dark color still to it. It's got kind of an inner lightning, if you will. And I know this poop science is disgusting, but I've already looked at some of it. It's quite fascinating, but at the same time quite disgusting. This comes down to diet. Some things will, the moisture exit almost like outward. Kind of goes from the inside out. Don't ask me, it's disgusting. But you'll see that there's certain diets that stool will do that if just like left unattended. You know, just kind of left to open air, it'll do that kind of a thing. You also got to be looking at color of poop. What could that mean about the diet? There's no runny poop, which means this is a diet he's already got. He's not sick. We're not seeing anything like that. Well, I mean, technically, I guess out of the group, I mean, that's a fair assessment. I definitely am the mold and poop expert out of the group. I find it disturbing myself, but it's true. It's not far-fetched even in the slightest. So I would say I take it with a badge of honor, but I really don't. It's too smelly and too nasty. No, thank you. But yeah, it's true. So when it comes to this, there's other things we can see with that. You can use the invert to go and kind of gauge it. It's pretty consistent throughout. But like I said, we got to be looking at how consistent he was defecating. And then this is going to come down to the amounts of poops that are in the house. This is where they also fumbled, because if they would have had an actual count of his droppings, we would actually have more of a solid timeline, how long he'd been in there pooping, right? Now, I know that I got to bring up what Jamie said, because that door, the back door, is the big thing here. He could have just opened the door, right? Like I want to reiterate here. My sliding glass door in my home, that's even tough for me to do it. I'm a big guy. I mean, I'm big. We're not talking like heavy as in like, big guy or anything, but okay, I'll make sure I get those to you then Monday maybe. Maybe I'll have those questions for you Monday. But the thing is if I'm having trouble opening this door, right? We don't know what kind of situation that door is on, right? Was that an easy door to open, or is that a hard door to open? Does this take a whole lot of strength, or does this take, not a whole lot of strength, but it gets snagged? We don't know. We don't have that data. The police would know, but I doubt they're going to remember at this point, okay? So we can't even assume Paleo could open it. It was only open a little bit, and he is not trying to open it, right? There would have been more. We got to see there's a lot of feces upstairs. There was some downstairs. But overall, I mean, he was keeping a distance from the bodies, it appears. At least trying to. So he was in the house, but for how long? Because now we've got, how long was he pooping in the house? Would David have let him poop in the house normally? Probably not. This looked like it was a pretty well house-trained dog. Probably went outside, pooped. So at this point, could we assume, did he just grab a bag and pick it up barehanded with his, with the bag on his hand and just kind of invert the bag? Maybe. Thing is, a lot of this kind of stuff, a lot of people don't seem to understand. There's evidence, a lot of this, in somebody's home. Somebody does that, they're going to have an excess of paper bags. So they're going to have the doggy poop bag pickups. They're going to have a box of it if they ran out. There's a lot of this kind of stuff. Did he have a poop, like a poop scoop, right? Did he have something like this? How did he take care of it? Did they just let him poop in the yard and he just kind of do his own thing? Well, I doubt that, because his daughter was running around in their backyard. They had a trampoline that she would jump on. They did their CrossFit in the backyard. So I highly doubt it. Right? Did he just go and take him for a walk and he had to go poop? So he go poop in somebody else's yard and go and grab it? That's a possibility, but still. Now we're looking at walks, keeping something a little more like travel handy. So now we're looking, does he have one of those little things where it kind of goes like on the leash or something like this? So he's, now we're looking for a leash. Now we're looking for these things. See, so this expands outward. And